even though you're an admin, you still have to be enabled as a marketing user. So, and the way you do that is if you go to Setup and go to Manage Users and just find any user. And so you can see here's a System Administrator user. I've got to click on that. I've got this marketing user flag that I've got to enable for anyone that I want to be able to manage campaigns, even system administrators. So you won't be able to add, edit, delete, create campaigns, or do anything unless you have that marketing user flag enabled. Salesforce users are using campaigns. It's a very effective feature that lets you track the driving force behind the leads that you're putting into Salesforce. Where a lot of people start, though, is in lead source and just using the lead source drop-down list. So if I go to an individual lead here, you'll see that there's a lead source standard field in Salesforce. In this case, we've got a customized drop-down list for web, phone inquiry. It's basically just a general category. And what I've seen actually a lot of clients do in some cases is make that a really long list of all the individual efforts that they're making. And that's where campaigns comes in, where it really makes it nice, where instead of just having a long drop-down list for the individual lead source values, you can actually use campaigns to track ROI. So, and a lot of you know that a lot of you are probably using campaigns. Hopefully we'll provide you with some information today that will help you kind of get the most out of that. So clicking on an individual campaign here, again, it's just a tab across the top, just like any other of the objects in Salesforce. And, you know, the first thing that I always suggest that you do is take a look at how you're trying to plan and measure your marketing activities, and then design the campaign's object and fields around that. So, for example, you have some standard fields like campaign name, whether or not it's active, start date and end date, the parent campaigns. I'll talk about that in a minute. We have some cost figures like budgeted cost and actual cost. Those are all standard fields and things you can use and help in planning your activities. This type field is really important. And I suggest that you customize it based on the individual marketing efforts that you're doing. It's going to actually look fairly similar to your drop-down list for lead source on your leads as well. I've added a couple of custom fields here just as suggestions and to give you some ideas about how you can customize the campaign screen to track some additional parameters for the campaigns that you're executing. So for example, under target audience, I've added a field for target audience where it's a small, medium, and large size business if we have different sizes. We have one called product focus too, where you can put different products on there as well. And then you can use Salesforce reporting to slice and dice your campaigns by the target audience, by the product focus, and in addition to using these other fields and parameters. I think it's important too that especially if you have more than one marketing team member that's using campaigns in Salesforce, to try to make some of these fields required. In this case, we haven't making them required, and so the problem is that if someone goes to fill out this form, they're not maybe going to provide all the requisite information. So just like any other Salesforce object as you do on opportunities or leads, it's important to try to make the important fields required fields. The other thing you can do is use parent campaigns, and let me edit this again. And parent campaigns allow you to create a hierarchy of campaigns. So for example, you could say you could use a parent campaign for something like direct mail efforts first half 2014. And then you could have your individual direct mail campaigns rolling up to that. So then you can report at the campaign level and also at the parent campaign level to get an overarching idea of everything that's going on with those. And I'll show you some of the campaign reports here a little bit later on. So attaching leads and contacts to campaigns is fairly simple, and you can do that in several different ways. One way to do that is simply to go to the individual lead or campaign, or excuse me, or contact, and then just scroll down to the campaign history related list. If you click on Add to Campaign, it lets me search. I'm going to add this lead to this campaign, and there's some members, and what you're doing here is creating a campaign member record. So in campaign members is simply another object in Salesforce that lets you link a campaign to a lead or a contact. And campaign members have status values as well. By default, the campaign status values are sent and responded. And so what that means is that it describes my relationship to the campaign. Now, a lot of people don't use sent because a lot of companies just like to use campaign members when somebody actually responds to a campaign. Some of you that might be using email marketing tools through Salesforce, like MailChimp or iContact, or one of the other, Constant Contact or one of those other applications, a lot of times you use sent when you're creating an email campaign in Salesforce, and then you're going to use one of those email applications to execute it. So, and I'll show you how to edit those in just a minute. So anyway, so I'm going to add this as a response to this campaign. Click Save. I can also import a file to a campaign and add those people as campaign members. Again, if I go back to this campaign, I'll just kind of show you. If I scroll down now, you can see that the Mike Walgren lead was added to this campaign as a campaign member. Now, if I go to Manage Members, I can add members via search function, where I can actually search for an individual person or search for leads or contacts by specific filter criteria and add them to the campaign that way. I can also, as I mentioned, import a file using the Salesforce import wizard. And when I click on import leads, it follows kind of the same criteria that you would use to import leads, but it also is automatically going to attach all of these leads to the specific campaign as campaign members. Now, that is, to me, is a really important best practice in Salesforce. I would recommend that you not import leads into Salesforce, even if it's from a purchase list, unless you have a campaign attached to them, because there's so much benefit from a reporting perspective to see where all of those leads are rolling up to. Web to lead forms can also be used to add leads to campaigns automatically. And there's a snippet of code that you simply need to add to the campaign where you add a hidden field, to the web to lead form. You add a hidden field to the web to lead form with the campaign ID. It automatically adds those people as any lead that comes in to that web to lead form. It adds them to a campaign. And then, of course, you can use your marketing automation system to automatically add leads to campaigns as well. That feature is available in pretty much all the systems: HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, Eloqua, whatever you're using. The important thing is to make that a best practice and to use the functionality in the marketing automation tool to be able to do that. And again, it just really gives you some good tracking and reporting, as we'll show a little bit later on. If I go back to a campaign here, I can also customize those member status values. Again, this is a highly recommended best practice. So if you are on the campaign screen and you click on Advanced Setup, you'll notice that these member status values, as I mentioned, the defaults are sent and responded. But if I click on this Edit button, then I can actually edit these values. And you can not only do this as an administrator, but you can give your marketing users the access to do this as well. So in this case, I'm actually going to change these, and I'm going to use what I would use for like a webinar or a live event. So I'm going to say that the values are registered, and I'm going to check the responded box, which means that value indicates a response to the campaign, and I'm going to also say attended. Click Save. Oh, looks like somebody's already got, it's not letting me edit those current values because somebody already has those. So I'm going to go ahead and just add those other two values. Which can be done as well. Indicate those as responses and save. So The way that you would use this is, so let's say I've got a list of my campaign members and I've got a landing page set up via web to lead form or via my marketing automation system or via custom form on my website, and I'm going to add all those people to this campaign as campaign members with the status of registered. What we can do then is I can actually go down and edit these. If I go to manage members, edit members, I can actually change their status value. Both one at a time and in mass. And it's a pretty straightforward process. So in this case, I'm going to change it to registered now. Just click on Update Status. Gives me a drop down. Everybody's updated to registered. Now, let's say it's after the event, and this person and this person attended, but the other one didn't. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my spreadsheet of event attendees, and I'm just going to click on Attended. And I change 2 of those people to the attended status. So now if I go back to the campaign, I can see that their member status has changed. So then you can start to segment your responses and respondents via the way that they're interacting with the campaign. And you can use a lot of different types of member status values. Obviously in events and webinars is where I think that it can be the most effective. Now I've got a lead in the system, my sales team is going to start to work it, and now I want to get an idea, well, how are those leads doing? Like, what's happening with the leads that I'm sending into Salesforce? So if I go to a report, and I'm actually going to just kind of create this report on the fly so you can kind of see it. I've got a couple other reports here that we're going to talk about a little bit later on. If I click on New Report and go to Campaigns, I'm going to find this Campaigns with Leads report. It can be really effective. I'm going to click Create. The first thing, it's kind of a quirky thing. It says it gives me an error, and that's because it says I need to select a campaign. In this case, I can select an individual campaign, but in this case, I'm just going to select all campaigns. I'm going to create a summary report, and I'm going to sort it by campaign name. I'm going to bring over some other fields here too. I'm going to bring over my campaign, my lead status field. I'm also going to bring over my, so this will be really simple. Hit Run Report. So now I've got a list of the campaigns, the leads from those campaigns, and what's happening with that lead from that campaign. And so now I can start to see, okay, what is sales doing with the leads that I'm sending over? And this is kind of this lead status report can be really effective in having that conversation with sales and trying to understand how good are the leads that we sent you, what's the progress of them, and what else do we need to do from here. Now, once the lead has been worked, of course, at some point, it's going to be, we're going to qualify the lead and add this person to a campaign as well, and hopefully get it converted into an opportunity. And so if that's the case, I'm working this lead, I've been able to identify my BANT criteria, and now they're ready to be converted into an opportunity. When I click on the Convert button, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, obviously I get the opportunity to create or a new account or attach to an existing account, create a new opportunity, just call this 100K, and we have our converted status. I'm going to click Convert. Now what's great about this is the campaign information is going to pull over into the opportunity and the contact record as well. So if I go to Jeff's contact record and scroll down to his campaign history, you'll notice here is the campaign that was originally associated with him. So that's great. That information carries over. If I click on the opportunity that was created, it carries over here as well into a field called Primary Campaign Source. And it also carries over into campaign influence as well, and I'll talk about what that means in just a second. So obviously the nice thing about using campaigns is not only when I convert the lead, it carries over into the opportunity. And if this record if this lead actually had multiple campaigns that they were associated with, then they would show up here under campaign influence with the last campaign that they touched under primary campaign source. And so that's kind of the difference between campaign influence and primary campaign source. Is primary campaign source is the last campaign that they touched, sort of put them over the top and led to the lead conversion. Now, under campaign influence, it's any campaign associated with that lead is going to convert over under campaign influence. Now, if I also scroll down to this contact record, let's say I added additional contacts as contact roles on this opportunity. Any campaigns that they're associated with as well would also show up under campaign influence. And so what that means is that any campaign that touches anyone associated with this opportunity is given credit for influencing the campaign. So we do have the primary campaign source, which is basically the campaign that is the most likely influencer on the opportunity, but we can also do these other campaigns that will have influence as well. So then I can start to measure which campaigns are sourcing the most opportunities and which campaign are also influencing opportunities, and start to get some idea of that ROI that we're talking about at the beginning in terms of trying to understand the success and value of the marketing activities that we're performing. As a lot of you know, it's not enough anymore for marketing just to ask for money and start spending money on activities. Most CFOs and CEOs want to see some fruits for that investment that they're making. So marketing is now seen, and rightly so, as an investment in the revenue of the company, as opposed to simply a cost center that has to be controlled. And so this is one way, by using these campaign influence features, this is one way that marketers can really demonstrate the value of the campaigns that they're working on. So, and I've created a couple of reports in Salesforce that show this. Let's go to the report screen. So I have a marketing sourced revenue report that I created that basically shows all of the opportunities that were sourced by the separate campaigns and their amounts. Now, this is just a demo instance. We're not seeing a lot of data here, but this is tied to that primary campaign source field on the opportunity that I was showing you earlier. I've also created a report called Marketing Influenced Revenue. If I click on that, you can see that I've got a little more data here that shows me opportunities, opportunity amounts, close dates, all of those things, not only for the campaigns that are the primary campaign source, which is shown by this checkbox field right here, but also the campaigns that are influencing the different opportunities. And I'm actually going to customize this, and we're going to do the same thing, group that by campaign name. If I run that, now I can start to see the aggregate values for the opportunities. Then I can see, oh, this Camp Creative campaign or this direct mail campaign, this is how much revenue those campaigns are influencing. And so it really provides a ton of value for marketers in terms of trying to measure ROI. And so you can see that's why we talked about before the best practice of always adding leads to campaigns when you import them into Salesforce from any method, whether it's web to lead, whether it's through your marketing automation tool, whether it's one at a time or through a report in Salesforce, or when you're importing leads. That's going to be a really important best practice.